I'm going to teach you something that has changed my photography forever. These two techniques I'm going to be going through can be used in a variety of different situations. However, I mainly use them for wedding photography. For the last 3 to 4 years, I've been so proud of everything I've done for wedding photography, apart from one particular thing. This one particular thing happens at every single wedding. It's always the last thing to happen. And when it would get into that part of the day, I used to feel physically sick. I couldn't wait for it to be over. That one part was the evening, but more specifically, the first dance and then the partying afterwards over on the dance floor. And then I learned how to use one of these things properly, or at least in a way that made my photos look a lot better. So let's make a start. First up, just for context, the flashes that I use. These are nothing special. They're just young newer flashes and they cost me £30. Not £30 each, £30 for both. Good old Facebook Marketplace. They certainly aren't the best on the market. They don't use the ETTL mode that most people like to use. But for these photos, we're going to be using manual mode, so these will do the job. We're also going to be using some wireless transmitters. I have 2, but you can get by with just 1 if you're just using the one camera. And if you're using a second camera, you can always switch your transmitter from one camera over to the other if you wish. Now these things cost me £45 each this time, but by far the best £90 I've spent in a very, very long time. So let's make a start with the dreaded first dance, and I'll show you exactly how I get these kind of photos. Now we're going to be using both of these flashes, and we're going to be using them as off-camera flashes. I attach the flashes to the top of some light stands, incredibly lightweight stands. They're definitely not the best out there. I would recommend buying something better. And whatever you do, make sure you use sandbags or something heavy to hold them in place so you don't have any accidents. On top of these, I have some flash holders. These are from a company called Neewer, and they also have the Barons mount, so you can use a softbox if you wish, which is great if you're wanting to do different types of photography, such as product photography. But the main reason I use these is because they have a flexible head and you can position the flash to point in any direction that you wish. So if you want any of this stuff that I've gone through, I'll leave a link just down here for you to check it out. So I put one flash onto each stand, I put them into receiving mode. I also make sure that they're on 2 different channels. The reason for that is so when I'm actually controlling the flash from the transmitter, I can change each flash individually. And the great thing about using 2 transmitters across 2 cameras is that you can actually have different settings for the same flash across both of the transmitters. For instance, if both transmitters are going to this flash, if this is 1/8 power for one camera and then 1/16 for another camera, if I've just taken a photo on the first camera and then go to take a photo on the second camera, as I take that, the settings will automatically change on the flash. When I found that out, that blew my mind. Then all you need to do is treat this how you would treat any other lighting situation. Normally I have something like a key light off to one side to be able to light the front of my subject and to give a little bit of contrast between one side and the other. And I normally put the other flash in the background just off to one side on the opposite side to my key light just to give me a little bit of rim light. And as I move the camera around getting the first dance photos, I can also get that lovely flare in my photos if I wish. To work out the exposure for your camera and your flashes, all you need to do is turn down the exposure of your camera to the point where you have as little ambient light as you want. Then all I need to do is work on each flash individually, increasing or decreasing the power to light the subject however I want it. Obviously, when you're doing this, you're gonna have to do some test shots, so make sure you actually plan ahead and do this in advance. After the first dance, everybody normally piles onto the dance floor and it gets really, really energetic. At this point, I take the transmitters off, grab one camera, stick a flash on it, which I've been using, stick a 20mm on it, and then go out and snap away. With that 20mm and a flash, you can get in and amongst the party having a great time, feeling the atmosphere and capturing that in your photos. This year, I've been doing a technique called shutter drag. Pretty much your camera shutter is left open a lot longer than you normally would have it. I think I normally go for around about 1/13 on my shutter. It varies depending on how energetic people are being. I also bring the aperture down to maybe around about f4 because I'm not too worried about more things being in focus. I normally bring the ISO up so the metering on it is giving me around about -1, and I use the flash to make up all of the rest. When I'm taking these photos, I actually get the flash and point it directly forward, which for some people may find really counterintuitive because most people want to point it at the ceiling and get the nice bounce to create some shadow on the face. But with this technique, what you're wanting to do is get as much light onto your subject as possible without overexposing them. The power of the flash is normally 1/32. Sometimes I find myself at 1/16, sometimes 1/64. Really, you just need to play around with your ISO and your flash power. But the closer you are to the subject, the less light you're gonna need. The further away from your subject you are, the more power that you're gonna need. One of the final settings I change when I'm using the flash for these kind of photos is changing the sync on the back of the camera. I always find that when I'm doing these photos, having a rear sync gives me the best type of photos that I want. As you're taking a photo, that shutter will open. It grabs as much ambient light as possible, and just as the shutter is about to close, your flash will pop off, it'll hit the subject, bounce all the light back in, and freeze your subject relatively sharp, if not perfectly sharp. Once you've dialed in your settings and got your exposure perfect, you can go around the whole dance floor taking photos, snapping away as much as you want. All you need to do is, as you take your photo, you need to move the camera around. You need to twist it, tilt it, bop it, and when you're doing that, you will get awesome light trails in the background and around the edges. Just carry on taking photos, repositioning yourself. Overall, with just a little bit of equipment, setting up my flashes in advance. And with that, this video comes to an end. Thank you very much for joining me. If you enjoyed the video and you're gonna find it useful, hit the like button. If you wanna see more, hit the subscribe button. And if you do, I will see you right there. See you later.